Bomma le botate, molokoloko wa dirutegi o tla tsena mo nakwaneng ye kopana. Le kgopelwa go ema.
Dames en here, die akademiese prosesie sal nou inbeweeg. U word versoek om asseblief op te staan.
Ladies and gentlemen, the academic procession will now enter. You are kindly requested to stand.
By the powers vested in me, I hereby constitute this assembly as a legal congregation of the University of Pretoria. During this assembly, degrees and diplomas, with all the associated rights and privileges, will be conferred and awarded to the candidates whose names appear in the program. Please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we request you to join us in silent prayer or meditation to give thanks for the achievements of our students. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as Chancellor of the University of Pretoria, I extend a hearty word of welcome to you at this graduation ceremony. In particular, I extend a hearty word of welcome to the Registrar, Professor C. Nicholson, Dean of Theology, Professor R.S. Litsusa, Dean of Veterinary Sciences, Professor V. Naidu, Dean of Law, Professor E. Skuman, Deputy Dean of Law, Professor C. Maimela, Assistant Director, Systems Operation, Ms. Y. Duplessis, Chairpersons of schools, Heads of Department, Directors, Emeriti and Honorary Professors, and other lecturers and their spouses. Representative of the Student Representative Council, who will present the SRC academic honorary colors, all persons to whom degrees and diplomas will be conferred and awarded to this morning, all spouses, parents, and other parties, the all spouses, parents, and can you hear me? All spouses, parents, and other parties, as well as dignitaries whom we may not be aware. A very warm welcome on this spring day to the wonderful celebration of your academic achievement and graduation from our 3 faculties of Theology and Religion, Veterinary Sciences, and Law. It is an absolute tribute to all of you and to the university that 141 postgraduate and undergraduate students from the 3 faculties are graduating here today. Achieving this milestone is no small feat, especially considering that our standards are among the highest globally. At UP, we take immense pride in consistently ranking amongst the top 1% of research-intensive universities across 14 fields worldwide. To add to our accolades, in the recently unveiled 2023 QS World University Rankings, UP has continued to expand its presence among subjects regarded as the best, both in South Africa and internationally. The Times and Higher Education and QS International Rankings by subject area are compiled annually to assist prospective students in identifying the leading universities in particular subjects. As a university, we don't chase rankings. We chase quality, relevance, and impact. But what is gratifying is that the world recognizes that UP and the faculties from which you are graduating is right up there. In terms of employment, 97% of UP graduates are employed within 6 months of completing their studies. More than 250,000 alumni have already passed through our doors, and we have well over 300,000 alumni working in 118 countries worldwide. As alumni, you are joining an exceptional community of UP graduates who are proud to say they studied at UP, a university with an ever-increasing global reputation and a legacy dating back 115 years. While every era has its joys and triumphs and its tragedies and horrors, we are all keenly aware it is not an easy world in which we are living today. Locally and globally, we are facing very serious challenges, including climate change, corruption, governance crisis, Can you hear me? It's not load shedding. Can you hear me? Locally and globally, we are facing very serious challenges, including climate change, corruption, governance crisis, economic decline, and political and economic instability. These are not temporary. It's a big wake-up call to think and do differently. And we need you to be the change makers. Universities and university graduates are more important than ever as leaders in the future of society, the future of work, and co-creation of all forms of new knowledge and innovation. A quality higher education is fundamental to achieving this. In every sector, we need strong, well-rounded leaders to tackle the range of global challenges as expressed in the UN Sustainable Development Goals and Africa Agenda 2063. UP, as you know, treats these as a priority for sustainable development in our country, the continent, and the world. To achieve this, we need to accelerate regional, continental, and international partnerships and collaborations between our universities, industries, private sectors, governments, and organizations, and to promote knowledge without borders. An exciting reality is that a world of opportunity has opened through digitalization. With graduates of your caliber and with your qualifications at the forefront, we need more of you. Another factor that needs urgent attention is that in many parts of South Africa and the continent, digital access and connectivity remain seriously limited. It needs governments to commit to universal connectivity, freeing of bandwidth, and mega-scale implementation. Achieving this would open huge opportunities for the continent in education, collaboration, innovation, and the future of work, including entrepreneurialism, which is now recognized as being a critical component of higher education. Can you hear me? At the University of Pretoria, the core focus of all our faculties and our recently established Center for the Future of Work is entrepreneurialism, self-employment, training, and research. We also have a technology and business incubator called Tax Innovation, which provides an environment where innovators and entrepreneurs can establish themselves. Globalized and future-orientated in our approach, UP has invested in a range of robots, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and augmented reality technologies to increasingly offer our students 21st century immersive learning experiences. It enables a new form of internationalization that provides far greater access to transdisciplinary partnerships, innovation, and opportunity than ever before. This is all part of the future-oriented university that UP is, enabled by the quality of programs we offer. There are so many examples, but the point I want to make is that while it is not an easy time in which we find ourselves, it is a fascinating time full of opportunity for you, our graduates, to be pursuing your careers and lives and to be making a contribution to the betterment of humanity. The ethos that UP holds dear. As alumni, you are encouraged and invited to continue a close relationship with the university and to share your experience, knowledge, skills, and networks in guiding our university and growing our international reputation and partnerships. As your Chancellor, I am doing the same. Chancellors are far more than ceremonial heads of universities. We are here to contribute to effecting meaningful change in our universities so that they can operate effectively, thrive, and contribute to the growth of our country and the world. In conclusion, I urge you to exercise your influence and societal standing thoughtfully. Embrace your roles. Can you hear me? Embrace your roles as beacons of humanity's finest qualities. Your conduct, both professionally and personally, reflects not only on yourselves, but also on our own esteemed institution, UP. We take immense pride in your achievements, offer our heartfelt congratulations, and extend our best wishes for your future endeavors. We say halala. No matter where life takes you, always keep in mind the significance of making each day matter. With a UP qualification, there are no limits, and I repeat, there are no limits to what you can achieve. Thank you. I now request the Dean of Theology and Religion to introduce to me the candidates present whose names appear in the program.
Good morning, Madam Chancellor.
Morning.
Madam Chancellor, I now call the supervisors to introduce the doctoral candidates.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce you to Arnel Becker-Ferreira, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Die Ander, die Lukaanse Jesus en Levinas, prepared under the supervision of Professor Ernest van Eck. In this thesis, the candidate investigated Emmanuel Levinas's philosophy of the other and brought his findings into conversation with how Jesus regarded his other through a Lucan perspective of himself. The main focus of Levinas's philosophical works is the primacy of an ethical relationship between the self and the other. No sound, there's the sound back. The main focus of Levinas's philosophical works is the primacy of an ethical relationship between the self and the other, Jesus' attitude and actions towards his other in the Gospel of Luke. Jesus proposed new values to include otherness in the kingdom of God. In the new kingdom of God, boundaries and advantages created by ethnicity, gender, status, and age are nullified. A comparison between Jesus' actions towards his other and Levinas's philosophy of the other is explored. A proposal is made for what South Africans can learn about the otherness, equality, diversity, and an approach to embracing outsiders. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Jacques Meiberg, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Kerkvervreemde jongmense se belewenis van die kerk en empirische onderzoek and prepared under my supervision. In this thesis, the candidate explored the alienation of church youth, especially young adults, in South Africa. Church-alienated young people experience and evaluate the church in a way that they do not feel that they want to be part of the church any longer. The church must hear them, adjust the present ministry to them before it is too late. In an empirical study that was sent to the alienated church youth targeting the 3 Afrikaans Protestant churches to determine why they decided to leave the church, based on these findings, possible solutions are offered for how the church can better minister to its youth and bring back the youth that is no longer part of it. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate. Ik hoor jou. Ik hoor jou. Nee.
You can come this way. I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Mhlupeki Mika Ntlali, who has completed his degree with requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy, with a thesis titled African Traditional Religion, a receptive vessel for the preparation for the Christian faith, prepared under the supervision of Prophet Jerry Pillay. In this thesis, the candidate focused on the Swazi people and their religious practices, concepts such as Swazi rituals and ceremonies, marriage and procreation, rites of passage, worship and celebrations, and communities' importance in African traditional religion were studied. The African traditional religion emphasizes the value of African religious and cultural heritage, urging African Christians not to abandon their traditions and beliefs in favor of Western culture and religion. It is found that African traditional religion shares similarities with Christianity, such as a belief in a supreme being, a moral code, and a focus on community, making it a receptive vessel for Christianity. The importance of recognizing and respecting African traditional religion suggests that the relationship between African traditional religion and Christianity can be strengthened through dialogue and understanding. Madam Chancellor, I request that you confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Neoma Venter, who has complied with requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis titled Little Seeds, a prototype of collaborative integrated missional diaconal praxis, prepared under my supervision and with Prof. C.J.P. Niemand as co-supervisor. In this thesis, Neoma explored the potential of collaboration between the Dutch Reformed Church and the church-affiliated social welfare organizations to mitigate poverty and address other complex social problems. Over the past 2 decades, missional theology has gradually transformed the ecclesiological landscape of the Dutch Reformed Church. The study aims to address the need to rethink diaconal theology and ministry as an embodiment of the missional nature and the calling of the Dutch Reformed Church. The research employed a qualitative approach towards missional transformation, using a biographical case study of Little Seeds and a supporting literature review. Semi-structured interviews were utilized. Findings resulted in the development of the scaling diaconal model, which served as a framework for collaborative integrated missional diaconal praxis. The model assists an interdisciplinary approach where each discipline departs from a position of strength, using polarity management techniques towards a collective impact. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Ninke Kim, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Philosophy with a thesis, Die behoeftes van en die bediening aan universiteitsstudente in Die behoeftes van en die bediening aan universiteitsstudente in Suid-Afrika, an empiriese studie prepared under my supervision. In this study, the candidate conducted an empirical study in the student congregations of the Reformed Church in South Africa, the Dutch Reformed Church, and the Nether-Dutch Reformed Church of Africa. The study answers the following primary research question. What are the ministry needs of Afrikaans-speaking university students in South Africa? And the study aims to determine who the present-day student is and what their reality looks like, to determine their ministry needs and to prepare how do we minister to them in a meaningful and an effective way. 3 ministry needs were identified: the need for faith formation, for mentorship, and a vibrant faith community. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Philosophy with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Theology. In Dogmatics and Christian Ethics, given Kaba. Master of Theology, Practical Theology, Amanda Masetla.
Ms. Maseba, congratulations.
Practical Theology, Mamuradi Motlana.
Ms. Maseba, congratulations.
Practical Theology again, Mochachi Mkhabani.
Mr. Kabana, congratulations.
In Practical Theology again, Frida Siema.
Mr. Emma, congratulations, ma'am.
In Practical Theology, Nomsa Vilagasi.
Ms. Vilagazi, congratulations.
In Practical Theology, Simnikiwe Kunyana.
Mr. Kunyana, congratulations.
In Practical Theology, Charles Msipa.
Mr. Msiba, congratulations. Come, let me shake your hand. You can go there.
In Practical Theology, Sello Ntite.
Mr. Msita, congratulations.
In Practical Theology, Alasna Slabert.
Ms. Slava, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates have completed or complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Arts Honors in Theology. Lucanyo Mahlatsi.
Mr. Masaki, congratulations.
Matthews Sephora. Dineo Macheke. With Bachelor of Arts in Theology, Siyabonga Ngonene. Madam Chancellor, the following candidate have complied with all the requirements for the Diploma in Theology, Omolemo Diale. Andile Mabeke. Tato Motlokwa. Bongani Msibi. Matapelo Ralepenya. Lindo Kuhle Zikalala. Thank you, Madam Chancellor. That's all for theology. Thank you.
I now request the Dean of Veterinary Science to introduce to me the candidates present whose names appear in the program.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Science, Veterinary Industrial Pharmacology. Lawrence Maguchi. Master of Science in Veterinary Tropical Diseases in Tropical Animal Health. Upile Kapicha. Chowe Malabwa. Magdalene Wiepena. With distinction. Masters of Veterinary Medicine in Laboratory Animal Science, Richard Mavanfitnitsa. Madam Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements of the degree Bachelor of Veterinary Science. Uhavo Mukawana. Malefu Inindi. Kirti Singh.
I now request the Dean of Law to introduce to me candidates present whose names appear in the program.
Madam Chancellor, I now invite the supervisors to introduce the doctoral candidates to you.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you the candidate, Brenda Akia, who has complied with the qualification of the degree Doctor of Laws under the supervision of Professor Direk Ladi and Professor Martha Bradley. In this thesis, evaluating the doctrine of command responsibility under international criminal law, its suitability in the prosecution of conflict-related sexual violence crimes, the candidate examined the importance of command responsibility in prosecuting sexual violence crimes committed in armed conflict under international criminal law. The contentious nature of the doctrine of command responsibility has resulted in controversy and legal challenges, which in turn have reduced the possibility of convictions of superiors for sexual violence crimes before international criminal courts like the International Criminal Court. The research identifies the need for a clear understanding of the doctrine. On this basis, the candidate provides a theoretical framework for applying the doctrine. On this basis, can you hear me? On this basis, the candidate provides a theoretical framework for applying the doctrine and makes recommendations on its application. In this context, the thesis contributes a clearer understanding of applying command responsibility to prosecute sexual violence crimes successfully. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I present to you the candidate Dorcas Basimanyane, who has complied with the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Laws with the completion of a thesis titled Towards a Right-Based Regulation of Mobile Technology and Internet in Africa, the case of South Africa and Uganda. In this thesis, the candidate examined cyber regulatory frameworks in South Africa and Uganda to determine the extent to which these frameworks enable the use of technologies for the socio-economic development of citizens and the degree to which persons' interests, rights, and property online are secured. The study illustrates how surveillance laws, electronic communications, and cybercrime laws are often weaponized to legitimize unlawful surveillance practices, tapping of mobile phones, hacking of social media accounts, political content filtering, and harvesting of personal data without accountability and adequate standards. The thesis recommends adopting a human rights-based and people-centered approach to regulate mobile and internet technology and ensure the implementation of existing legislation. The thesis has been completed under the supervision of Professor Magnus Chilander. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you the following candidate that has complied with the degree Doctor of Laws. Moterayo Olivimi Egbe. In this thesis, a new legal and regulatory framework for derivative actions in Nigeria, the candidate examined the limitations of the derivative action regime in Nigerian company law to establish whether there is a need for legal reform. The derivative action plays an important role in corporate governance by enabling shareholders to bring legal actions to enforce breaches of corporate rights. The thesis suggests an overhaul of Nigerian statutory derivative action procedure similar to the legal reforms enacted in South African law. The laws of the United Kingdom and the United States of America were also considered. The candidate suggests solutions to the problem of funding and cost and considers how derivative actions in Nigeria can shift from private enforcement by shareholders towards public and regulatory enforcement. The thesis uniquely contributes to corporate governance and developing the derivative action in company law. This thesis was prepared under the supervision of Professor Famida Kassim, and I request you to confer the degree Doctors of Laws on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I present to you the candidate Omotunde Enibokan, who has completed the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Laws with her thesis titled South Africa's Implementation of Human Rights on the Law of Acquisition of Nationality. In her thesis, the candidate illustrated challenges and gaps in South Africa's nationality legislation, which violate South Africa's human rights obligations on the right to nationality. Through a comparative methodology, the candidate shows how many of the identified shortcomings could be addressed through a statelessness determination procedure that advances human rights norms and principles. This doctoral thesis was prepared under the supervision of Professor Magnus Chilander. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce you to Liesel Hager, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws, with a thesis titled The Potential Delictual Liability of Non-Vaccinating Parents in South Africa, prepared under the supervision of Professor Elsabe Skuman and I. In the thesis, the candidate examines whether parents may be held delictually liable for harm caused to another by failing to vaccinate their child. The thesis provides an historical perspective on non-vaccination and explains why it is still regarded as a global health threat today. Whether children have a right to vaccination and whether parents have a corresponding duty to vaccinate their children, as well as the common law rights of parents and the role of the Children's Act, were all considered in constitutional perspective. Based on an extensive comparative study of several common law and civil law jurisdictions, The candidate concludes with recommendations for statutory reform regarding the delictual liability of non-vaccinating parents. The thesis makes an original contribution to a largely unexplored area of law which gained prominence during the COVID pandemic and its aftermath. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby, can you hear me? I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you the candidate Melville Jacobs, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws under the supervision of Professor Direklati. In this thesis, the responsibility to protect principle as a prism through which to assess the consequences of non-cooperation with the International Criminal Court through the lens of general international law. The candidate examined whether the International Criminal Court's framework for responding to non-cooperation could be enhanced through the application of the responsibility to protect, a doctrine that places countries under the responsibility to protect its populations from international severe crimes. This thesis also examined whether such frameworks could be strengthened by applying other sources of general international law. This thesis is a unique contribution to procedural matters in international criminal law as it critically engages with the responsibility to protect and other sources of general international law in strengthening the ICC's non-cooperation frameworks, as well as those frameworks developed in the ICC Assembly of States Parties and the UN Security Council. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Mamufana Florina Lishaba, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled The Designation and Stringent Prudential Regulation of Systemically Important Banks, prepared under my supervision. In her thesis, the candidate examined the regulatory matters that were the regulatory measures that were developed post the global financial crisis of 2008 to address the problem of too big to fail financial institutions associated with systemic risk and moral hazard. The study considered the approach and methodology set out in the Financial Stability Board's systemically important financial institutions SIFI framework, as well as the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision's global systemically important banks, DSIP and GSIP frameworks. More pertinently for South Africa, the Basel Committee's domestic systemically important framework. The thesis focused on the research that was implemented by the Basel DSIP framework, assessments methodology, and the higher loss absorbency requirement, as well as other stringent prudential requirements in respect of South African DSIPs. The South African approach is critically compared with the approaches and methodologies implemented in the United States and the Netherlands as an EU member state. Various recommendations were made to improve the South African position and the approach to designation and stringent prudential regulation of domestic systemically important banks. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Matsitso Agnes Matasane, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled Deposit Guarantee in South Africa, a Comparative Appraisal, prepared under my supervision. In her thesis, the candidate examined the new South African Deposit Insurance Framework, the first explicit deposit insurance framework introduced in South Africa, through the Financial Sector Laws Amendment Act, which inserted Chapter 12A into the Financial Sector Regulation Act, which is the Twin Peaks Framework Act in South Africa. Notably, South Africa has previously operated an implied deposit insurance system based on the principle of constructive ambiguity. This thesis interrogated in particular the extent to which the main features of the South African Explicit Deposit Insurance Framework are aligned with the AIDI core principles for effective deposit insurance systems as an international good practice benchmark. A comparative study was also undertaken of the evolution of deposit insurance as pioneered in the United States in the 1930s, as well as Australia's relatively nascent deposit insurance framework, to inform recommendations for strengthening the new South African explicit deposit insurance framework. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Chancellor, I present to you the candidate Diana Msipa, who has completed a thesis, the requirements of a doctoral degree of laws, with a thesis titled Recognizing the Sexual Autonomy of Adult Women with Mild Down Syndrome in South Africa, Rethinking Vulnerability. In her thesis, the candidate examined the capacity of adult women with mild Down syndrome to give valid consent to sexual intercourse under the South African law. In her, oh, it's not yet. In this thesis, the candidate examined the capacity of adult women with mild Down syndrome to give valid consent to sexual intercourse under the South African law. Using mainly Martha Feynman's vulnerability analysis and the human rights standards under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the research identified shortcomings in the legal framing of the capacity to give consent to sexual intercourse for persons with intellectual disabilities under South African law. The research suggests new ways of reforming the South African legal framework to protect the legal capacity of women with intellectual disabilities. The candidate presents a first comprehensive account of the appraisal of the protection of sexual autonomy of women with intellectual disabilities under South African law. As such, the thesis contributes to the understanding of legal capacity of persons with disabilities and advancing sexual rights of persons with disabilities. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you the candidate, Pedamoyo Mukumbiri, who has complied with the requirements of the Doctor of Law degrees with writing her thesis on the title of An Analysis of the Implementation of Women's Right to Peace by the African Union Peace and Security Architecture, a case study of Zimbabwe. In her thesis, okay, I can't be heard. In this thesis, the candidate examined the institutionalization of gender equality at the African Union through the adoption of the Protocol on the Rights of Women in Africa and how it remains a historical achievement in the continent. In the traditional African setup, women lacked status owing to their gender. The thesis interrogates the African Union Protocol on Women's Rights as an extraordinary pathway towards achieving the dignity of African women. It concludes by advocating for the comprehensive implementation of gender equality and equality across Africa based on the African Union Protocol. This thesis was prepared under the supervision of Professor Michelle Ansungule. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you the candidate Gary Miller, who has complied with the requirements of the degree Doctor of Laws under the supervision of Professor Annalise Nienaber. In this thesis, Doctor or Soldier, Ethical and Legal Dichotomies in the Practice of Medicine in the Armed Forces. The candidate examined the legal and ethical position of healthcare professionals serving in the military. While a soldier is expected to kill in defense of a country, doctors are entrusted with healing patients under their care. Military doctors, therefore, conceptually at least fulfill two roles. These roles are incompatible, potentially leading to role conflicts or contradictory role obligations or dual loyalties. Dual loyalty dilemmas faced by South African military healthcare professionals in executing their functions as healthcare professionals and professional soldiers were examined in the context of domestic or municipal and international law. The healthcare professionals' obligations towards their patients, founded in the bioethical principles of autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice, form the overarching framework of this examination. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you the candidate, Louis Merlinder, who has complied with the requirements of the degree Doctor of Laws under the supervision of Professor Peter Custance. In this thesis, an assessment of the regulatory framework pertaining to traditional medicine in South Africa, the candidate offered the first comprehensive research on this indigenous medicine system and sought to determine whether the regulatory framework should continue, be abolished, or be strengthened. The original contribution of the study is in its systematic, extensive examination of the underpinning philosophy, dogmata relating to the causes of disease, categories of practitioners, specific practices, and pharmacopoeia in the treatment regimen, specifically whether deleterious to the health of the public or not, to extant legislative precepts. This thesis concludes that regulation of this system of medicine is not only to be continued, but also appreciably strengthened. A legal scope of practice is presented for consideration by the regulators with proposals for other specific recommendations regarding regulation, in particular proscription of certain practices. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, allow me to introduce to you Safisa Vuyu-Musi, who complied with the requirements of Doctor of Laws with his thesis entitled A Critical Analysis of the Criminalization of Aspects of Traditional Medicinal Practice in Swaziland in relation to the right to freedom of religion. African traditional healing, occultism, and African religion triangulate around the criminal law in a manner that prompted the thesis, A Critical Analysis of the Criminalization of Aspects of Traditional Medicinal Practice in Swaziland in relation to the right to freedom of religion. The study examined these interrelationships and determined whether the practices, habits, and experiences of Swazi indigenous medicinal healers may establish a basis for recognition and protection as forms of cultural and religious expression under the Constitution. This research located traditional healers at the vanguard as the principal custodians and gatekeepers of the Swazi traditional religion. The candidate's central argument is that their activities, coupled with their lived experiences, ensured that theirs was medico-religious reality that did not warrant the current criminal law mischaracterizations and deserved constitutional protection. The candidate presents a niche perspective on legal stereotypes in Swazi traditional medicine and suggests a new method of conceiving and recognizing their practice in the existing constitutional and indigenous customary law jurisprudence. Madam Chancellor, I hereby request you to confer the degree Doctor of Laws on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate.
Madam Chancellor, I introduce to you Priscilla Mumbua Nyaku, who has complied with the requirements for the degree Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled The Goals of Competition Law for Merger Analysis in Developing Jurisdictions, a critical appraisal of merger analysis under Kenyan competition law, prepared under my supervision. In the thesis, the candidate considered whether jurisdictional exigencies should influence competition law enforcement, with a specific focus on merger analysis. The candidate examined various approaches and schools of thought regarding the goals of competition law and how these goals play out within jurisdictional parameters. The history of enforcement of American antitrust, being traditionally viewed as marking the origins of modern competition law, was scrutinized to establish the nature of the interplay between greater economic policy direction and the goals of competition law. The study also explored the issue of convergence and whether developing jurisdictions should align their competition law to that of developed jurisdictions with mature competition laws. The study aimed to identify the most appropriate and pragmatic object of competition law for developing nations and establish the nature and elements of merger analysis that would resonate best with the identified object. The thesis is concluded with recommendations for future reform and research. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Just wait. Madam Chancellor, I present to you the candidate Denise Zambezi, who has complied with the requirements for the degree of Doctor of Laws with a thesis titled The Rights of Transgender Persons to Access Healthcare in South Africa. In this thesis, the candidate examined the right of transgender persons in South Africa to access healthcare by exploring the social and legal determinants that influence access. Based on interviews with 42 transgender persons and 9 healthcare professionals, the thesis reveals multiple challenges experienced by transgender persons in respect of accessing healthcare services, in particular stigma and discrimination from healthcare professionals, lack of resources, inadequate access to information, and health seekers' poor socioeconomic status. Comparing the socio-legal position of transgender persons in South Africa with that of 5 other countries, being Kenya, Thailand, Poland, Argentina, and Malta, the thesis identifies shortcomings in the South African legal framework and approach. The study recommends legal and social reform to strengthen the rights of transgender persons to access healthcare in South Africa. This study was prepared under the supervision of Professor Franz Filion. Madam Chancellor, I request you to confer the degree on the candidate.
I hereby confer the degree Doctor of Laws with all its associated rights and privileges on the candidate. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Master of Laws. Shongwe Lindokuhle, Master of Laws, Child Law.
Congratulations, ma'am.
Toto Finduli, Master of Laws, Constitutional and Administrative Law.
Mr. Toto, congratulations.
Mariri Ramo Langwana, Master of Laws, Constitutional and Administrative Law.
Mariri, congratulations.
Chivase Chipfiwa, Master of Laws, Constitutional and Administrative Law. Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in Corporate Law. Ndlovu Leti.
Congratulations.
Peter Weinand. Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in Intellectual Property Law, Rebone Dikotla. Lucinda Kok.
Congratulations.
Refilwe Dichaba.
Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in International Air, Space and Telecommunications Law. David Hood.
Congratulations.
Detroit Nicholas.
Mr. Detroit, congratulations.
Jardine Taylor.
Mr. Jardine, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in International Law. Lane Busaf.
Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in Labor Law. Kwali Portia.
Ms. Kwali, congratulations.
Makamo Agreement.
Mr. Makamo, congratulations.
Babo Itumeleng.
Ms. Papo, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in Law and Political Justice. Ada Assad. Tabang Manamela.
Mr. Manamela, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtain their degree Master of Laws in Mercantile Law. Tina Kitchen.
Congratulations, sir.
Whitaker Samantha.
Ms. Whitaker, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidate obtained the degree Master of Laws in Procedural Law. Azwifari Rama Chimbila. Madam Chancellor, the following candidate obtained their degree Master of Laws in Socio-Economic Rights, Karabo Lekomanyane. Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtained their degrees Master of Laws in Tax Law, Bijane Tandekile.
Congratulations.
Viljoen Willem.
Mr. Viljoen, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtained their degree Master of Laws in Human Rights in Socio-Economic Rights. Malacha Alfred.
Malaka, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidate obtained their degree Master of Laws in Human Rights and Sexual and Reproductive Rights. Michelle Oyuga.
Mr. Oyuga, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidate obtained their degree in Master of Laws in International Law, International Humanitarian Law and Human Rights in Military Operation, Krishna Rasool with distinction. Madam Chancellor, the following candidate obtained their degree Master of Laws in Mercantile Law, specializing in banking law, Johannes van der Merwe with distinction.
Mr. van der Merwe, well done. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtained their degree Master of Laws in Mercantile Law, specializing in insurance law and governance, Lizelle Grief.
Congratulations.
Martinius Kruger.
Mr. Kruger, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidate obtained their degree Master of Laws in Procedural Law, Elton Hart.
Mr. Hart, congratulations. You are not on TV today.
Willem Spies.
Mr. Spies, congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtained their degrees Master of Laws in Public Law, specializing in extractive industry law in Africa, Chipa Bryan.
Congratulations, my dear.
Kudzai Mataba. Ruswa Namatai. Madam Chancellor, the following candidates obtained their degrees Master of Philosophy in Human Rights and Disability Rights, Boniface Masai.
Congratulations, sir.
Chelsea Williamson.
Ms. Williamson. Congratulations.
Madam Chancellor, the following candidates have complied with all the requirements for the degree Bachelor of Laws. David Akres.
Congratulations.
Patience Chindarara.
Ms. Chindarara, congratulations.
Tlakude Desiree.
Ms. Tlakude, congratulations.
Siphelelo Khumalo.
Mr. Khumalo, congratulations.
Kingsley Kruger.
Mr. Kruger, congratulations.
Kholagano Maimane.
Ms. Maimane, congratulations.
Semi Mamokgobo.
Mr. Mamokopo, congratulations.
Mudirwa Matiba.
Mr. Matiba, congratulations.
Moji Tabiso.
Mr. Moji, congratulations.
Thandolwethu Mtshali.
Ms. Mtshali. Congratulations.
Nyasha Nyantsine. Slabet Luchele.
Ms. Labet, congratulations.
Leandre van Dijk.
Ms. Van Dijk, congratulations. That's all. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an appropriate time to give our graduates a big hand for their hard work and perseverance. And I would now like to ask our graduates to applaud their families, friends, and spouses for their support over the years. We have now come to the end of the proceedings. Before we close, I wish to invite all present for refreshments in front of the aula. You are requested to stand for the singing of the national anthem and to remain standing until the assembly has been dissolved and the academic procession has left the auditorium. The words of the national anthem are printed on the inside back cover of the program. Please rise. By the powers vested in me, I hereby dissolve this assembly of the University of Pretoria.
So